Ethan Parker never planned to attend the Willow Creek Summer Festival, but sometimes life nudges a person in directions they never intended to go, and that warm Oregon evening became one of those moments for him. His friends had dragged him out of his apartment after weeks of watching him sink deeper into his breakup, insisting he needed air, music, lights and anything, to make him feel alive again. Ethan didn't argue because he didn't have the strength to resist, and deep inside, he wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe he did need a night that didn't involve staring at walls that remembered too much. The festival stretched across the town park with glowing lanterns hanging from trees, food stalls filling the air with the smell of grilled corn and cinnamon sugar, and families laughing as if the world had no sharp edges. Music pulsed from the main stage, a mix of folk and pop that created a steady rhythm across the crowd. Ethan walked through it all feeling strangely disconnected, like he was watching a movie he had no part in, but he kept moving, hands in pockets, pretending to enjoy what everyone else seemed to love effortlessly. As he stepped deeper into the festival, he noticed that people were dancing near the stage, but his eyes drifted toward the quieter edges of the crowd. It wasn't the performers or the cheerful families that caught his attention, but a sense of motion soft and deliberate, almost hidden. Something tugged at him, pulling his focus toward the darker corner near the oak trees where the lights didn't fully reach. And that was when he saw her. A young woman, maybe in her mid-20s, dancing alone. Not dancing for attention. Not dancing like someone trying to impress strangers, but dancing like someone who didn't care whether anyone watched. Her name was not yet known to him, but the moment he saw her move, it felt strangely impossible to look away. Her steps were not perfect or polished, but they carried a deep emotional language. Her arms moved like she was shaping something invisible in the air, and her eyes stayed closed as if she was locked inside a private world. There was a softness in the way she turned, yet strength in the way she planted her feet with certainty, like she knew exactly what her heart needed to say even if her voice could not. Ethan froze, caught off guard by how beautiful the moment was. Not beautiful in the romantic sense at first, but beautiful in the way truth is beautiful, the kind of truth people rarely show in public. There was something in her movements that reminded him of the emotions he had buried inside himself over the past months. She danced like someone who had been hurt but refused to let the pain silence her. She danced like someone who still believed there was something worth feeling. Ethan felt a sudden unexpected warmth inside his chest, a flicker of curiosity mixed with something more delicate, something like hope, though he didn't dare name it out loud. He stood there watching her, unsure why he felt drawn in, unsure why his heartbeat changed its rhythm just by seeing the way she breathed through each movement. He took a small step closer before he could stop himself. He wasn't trying to interrupt her, but he wanted to see her more clearly. As he moved closer, the music from the stage faded slightly behind him, replaced by the soft sound of her feet brushing against the grass. The lanterns above them cast a warm glow that flickered across her face, and Ethan noticed the faintest tremble at the corner of her mouth, as if she was fighting something inside. She turned slowly, her arms lifting like she was releasing a heavy memory, and Ethan wondered what story she was telling through her dance. It wasn't a performance. It was a confession. For several seconds, he forgot he was standing in a crowded festival. The world narrowed to her, her silent story, the way she created emotion without words. He wondered if anyone else had noticed her. But when he glanced around, he realized most people were focused on the loud stage. Performance. She was dancing at the edge, unnoticed, uncelebrated it, drifting freely between shadows and light. It made her seem even more real, even more human. Then, unexpectedly, she stopped. Her body stilled mid-movement. Her arms lowered slowly. Her breathing deepened. And then she opened her eyes. Their eyes met. The shock that rushed through Ethan's chest was immediate. It wasn't because she caught him watching. People get caught watching strangers all the time. It was because of the way she looked at him. She looked at him as if she knew something about him, as if she recognized something familiar, even though they had never met. Her gaze was soft but piercing, like she saw the sadness he carried, like she understood it without needing to ask why it existed. Ethan froze again, but this time for a different reason. A quiet connection formed in the silence between them, a small but unmistakable thread. He felt it, and he could tell she felt it too by the way her expression shifted. Her eyes softened even more, almost in surprise, like she wasn't expecting anyone to understand the language she had been speaking with her movements. For a brief moment, neither of them moved or spoke. The festival noise felt distant again, and the flicker of lanterns reflected off the emotion she carried in her eyes. It was sadness, yes, but also strength. And beneath both, a kind of longing, a longing for something better, something healing, something real. Ethan felt the urge to walk toward her, to say something, anything, but he didn't move. He worried he would break the delicate atmosphere between them if he pushed too quickly. He could see she was vulnerable in a way people rarely show in public. But before he could find his voice, she did something that surprised him. She smiled. Not a big smile. Not a playful one. A small, gentle smile filled with shy curiosity, as if she couldn't believe someone had seen her dance like that. It was a smile that held questions, hesitations, and a flicker of courage. Ethan felt something inside him shift again, softer this time, like a door opening quietly after being stuck for too long. She took a slow, cautious step toward him. Ethan felt his breath tighten, not out of fear but out of anticipation. But just as she approached the edge of the lantern light, someone from the crowd called her name loudly. The shout startled her, and she turned her head quickly. Ethan watched the light in her eyes dim slightly, replaced by a familiar mix of concern and hesitation. She looked back at him, caught between staying and leaving. Another voice shouted her name again, this time more urgently. She hesitated, her eyes flickering with something like apology. She didn't want to walk away. He could see that clearly, but something tugged her back toward the crowd. She gave him one last look, the kind that says, I don't want this moment to end. But fate rarely listens to what people want. Without saying a word, she stepped backward. Then another step. Then another. Her expression softened with a quiet regret, and she turned toward the sound of the voices calling her. Ethan watched her disappear into the blur of festival lights, leaving behind the echo of her dance, the ghost of her smile, and a strange warmth he had not felt in a long time. He remained standing under the lanterns long after she vanished. The music grew louder again, the smell of food returned, the laughter of strangers filled the air, but the moment he had shared with her lingered like a breath held too long. He didn't know her name, her story, or why she danced with such emotion. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He had seen something rare, something honest, something unforgettable. And he knew, without understanding why, that this wasn't the last time he would think about the girl who danced at the edge of the festival. Ethan returned to the festival the next evening, not expecting anything but unable to stop himself from hoping, and for a while he wandered through the crowds trying to pretend he wasn't searching for the girl who had danced like she was speaking straight from her soul. But the night ended quietly, and he went home feeling the weight of an unfinished moment. The following week felt strangely long for him. He kept replaying the expression on her face, the soft strength in her movements, the way she had disappeared when someone called her name. He didn't know why it mattered so deeply. But something about that night had opened a space inside him that had been shut for too long. He began returning to the riverside path, the park, the edges of the town where people practiced music or art, hoping fate might give him another chance. Days passed, then a week, and just when he began to believe he would never see her again, he spotted her near the old bridge by the river. She wasn't dancing this time. She was sitting alone on the grass, hugging her knees, staring at the water with a quiet sadness that made his heart tighten. Ethan hesitated for only a moment before walking toward her, nervous but drawn in by something he couldn't explain. She looked up as he approached, and even though she seemed startled, she didn't pull away or hide her face. Instead, she gave a small, tired smile that felt familiar. I didn't think I'd see you again, she said softly, her voice warm but fragile. Ethan sat beside her, leaving a respectful space, and answered honestly, I didn't think I'd see you again either, but I kept hoping. Her eyes widened slightly, as if she wasn't used to someone speaking to her with sincerity. The river breeze brushed her hair over her shoulders, and she gently tucked it behind her ear. There was something delicate in the movement, something that revealed more than she said. After a few seconds she whispered, I'm sorry I ran away that night. Ethan shook his head gently. You didn't run. You left because someone needed you. She gave a small laugh, but it sounded painful, the kind of laugh someone makes to hide old wounds. I wasn't running from them, she said softly. I was running from myself. The confession surprised him and he felt the urge to ask why, but he didn't want to push too fast. Instead, he waited for her to speak again, giving her the silence she needed. She exhaled deeply, like she was letting go of something she had been holding for days. "I dance when my mind is too heavy," she said. "It's the only way I know how to release what I can't say." Ethan listened closely, sensing how important her words were. She continued, "That night, I didn't think anyone was watching. I didn't want anyone to. It's easier to pretend you're fine when people don't see the truth." Ethan nodded, because he understood that feeling more than she realized. For a moment, their shared silence felt like a bridge linking both of their hidden struggles. Then she added quietly, "But you saw me. And I didn't expect it to matter so much." Her voice trembled slightly, and Ethan felt something inside him pull toward her. Not out of pity but out of recognition. He had been there too, lost, hurt, pretending. "It mattered to me too," he said softly. "Even if I don't know why yet." She looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude mixed with fear. The kind of fear that appears when someone isn't sure they deserve kindness. "My name is Lily," she finally said. Ethan smiled gently. "I'm Ethan." She repeated his name like she was trying to memorize the sound of it. They talked for a while about harmless things, work, childhood memories, the quiet charm of a small town, how the river always made life feel slower. But beneath those light words was a deeper current neither of them ignored. The connection kept building, slow but certain. Then the conversation shifted when Lily glanced toward the festival lights across the river. "I used to think dancing would be my whole future," she said. "I trained for years. I worked harder than anyone knew. But things changed." Ethan could hear the pain wrapped inside the calm tone of her voice. "What happened?" She stared at the water for a long moment before speaking. "I lost someone who believed in me more than I believed in myself," she said, and Ethan felt her pain without needing the details. "After that, I couldn't dance without feeling like the music was pulling me backward instead of forward." Her honesty struck him hard, not because her story was dramatic, but because she spoke with such openness. Ethan took a quiet breath, then shared something of his own. "I know how it feels to lose someone you thought would be there forever," he said. "I used to think love was something solid, something that didn't break." She looked at him with genuine sympathy, not the surface-level kind people give out of obligation. "Did someone break your heart?" she asked gently. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, and I let the sadness stay longer than I should have." Lily didn't respond with cliches or easy comfort. Instead, she whispered, "Sometimes sadness stays because it doesn't know where else to go." Her words made him feel understood in a way he hadn't felt in months. They continued talking, deeper now, more vulnerable. Lily shared how she had pulled away from friends, how she hid her emotions behind smiles no one questioned, how dance became her last safe space. Ethan shared how he pushed people away without meaning to, how he felt trapped between wanting connection and fearing it, how the silence of his home felt heavier than anything he had ever carried. As they opened up, the atmosphere around them grew warmer, almost like the universe had paused to give them this moment. At one point, Lily said softly, "It's strange. I don't talk like this with anyone." Ethan smiled gently. "Maybe that's because we understand each other more than we realized." She nodded slowly, and he saw the truth settle in her eyes. Then, without warning, she stood up and walked toward a small clearing near the riverbank. Ethan watched quietly as she lifted one hand, then the other, and began to move again. But this time her dance felt softer, more vulnerable, like she was letting him see something she usually hid. When she finished, she turned to him with an expression full of emotion. "That's what's left of my dream," she said. It was the first time Ethan had ever felt heartbreak for someone else's story. Not because she was weak. She wasn't. But because she was brave enough to show her pain. He walked closer but not too close, wanting her to feel safe. "It's still beautiful," he said. "And so are you when you dance." The compliment made her look away shyly, though he could see a faint glow of warmth in her cheeks. Just as the moment grew peaceful, Lily's phone buzzed loudly in her pocket. She checked it and instantly the softness in her expression disappeared, replaced by worry. She hurriedly slipped the phone into her jacket and took a step back from Ethan. "I need to go," she said quickly. "I'm sorry." Ethan frowned. "Did something happen?" She shook her head too fast, like someone trying to escape a question. I can't stay. Not right now. He took a careful step toward her, wanting to understand. Lily, you don't have to explain everything, but don't feel like you have to run from me. She froze at his words, and for a moment it looked like she might stay, but then her eyes filled with fear again. Not fear of him, but fear of something inside herself. Please, she whispered. Don't follow me. And she backed away slowly, her expression full of apology and conflict. Ethan didn't move. He respected her request even though it hurt to watch her leave. She turned and walked quickly down the path, her figure growing smaller between the trees, until finally she disappeared into the night, leaving behind an ache he didn't understand and a connection he wasn't ready to lose. And as he stood alone by the river, Ethan realized something impossible to ignore. Lily wasn't just a girl who danced beautifully. She was someone carrying a story heavy enough to hide from the world. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he wanted to know that story, even if it meant waiting longer than he expected. Ethan spent the next several weeks trying to balance real life with the constant thought of Lily, waking up early for work, going through his routine, talking to people when he had to, but every quiet moment led him back to the memory of her dance, her eyes, her sudden fear when the phone buzzed, and the way she whispered, "Please don't follow me," as if she were trying to protect him from her world instead of protecting herself. He didn't know what she ran from, and he didn't know why she always looked like she was ready to break and rebuild herself at the same time. But something about her stayed inside him like a faint melody he couldn't forget. He tried distracting himself. Gym, work, long walks, coffee shops, but nothing filled the space she had opened. Every time he passed the river he slowed down, listening for footsteps or soft music. Every time he saw a dancer on TV, he wondered if Lily could have been one of them had life been kinder to her. Their connection, brief as it was, felt like something unfinished, something that had chosen him before he even knew he needed it. One evening, after a long day that felt particularly heavy, Ethan took a walk through town, letting his feet move without direction. The sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky with warm gold and soft pink, and for a moment he felt strangely calm. But then, as he approached the community center, he heard faint music leaking through the cracked door. Slow, emotional. The kind of song someone would choose when they weren't performing for others but trying to reach something inside themselves. Ethan's heart jumped. He knew that kind of music now. He knew who danced to it. Without thinking, he stepped toward the door, peeking through the narrow window. And there she was. Lily. Alone in the empty room, barefoot, hair tied back loosely, wearing simple clothes that made her look even more human than before. She moved differently than she had at the festival. Less guarded, more honest, like the walls she carried around were down for the first time in a long time. Her arms traced slow shapes through the air. Her body swayed with a quiet rhythm. Her expression shifted from pain to hope and back again. It was the purest form of emotion he had ever witnessed. Ethan felt frozen. Not out of fear but out of awe, unwilling to disrupt something so vulnerable. He watched quietly as she turned, spun gently, stopped, breathed, moved again. When the song ended, she lowered her arms and stayed still, shoulders shaking slightly, as if the dance had pulled out pieces of her she wasn't ready to face. Ethan didn't realize he had stepped inside until she lifted her head and their eyes met. Lily gasped softly, startled, but instead of running like before, she looked relieved, truly relieved, like she had been waiting for someone to find her there even if she didn't dare hope for it. "Ethan," she whispered, his name sounding like a mixture of surprise and gratitude. He closed the door behind him gently and stepped closer. "I didn't want to interrupt," he said quietly. "You never interrupt," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "It's just, I didn't think you'd come back." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "I never really left," he said. Lily's eyes softened, and she sat down on the edge of the wooden floor, looking suddenly small and tired. Ethan joined her, sitting close enough for warmth but giving her space. For a moment neither spoke, but it wasn't an uncomfortable silence, more like a silence filled with everything they hadn't said yet. Then Lily exhaled slowly. "I disappeared again," she said. "I'm sorry." Ethan shook his head. "You don't have to apologize for being scared." She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers the way people do when they're trying not to cry. "It's not you I'm scared of," she said. "It's what I feel when I'm around you. It's too real, too fast, Too close to something I told myself I shouldn't want. Ethan listened carefully, sensing how important this moment was. Lily, he said gently, whatever it is you're afraid of, you don't have to face it alone. She lifted her head, eyes full of conflict and longing. I'm not used to anyone wanting to stay, she whispered. People leave. Or I push them away before they can. Ethan saw the truth in her eyes. Years of carrying things alone. Years of feeling too much and sharing too little. I'm not here to break anything, he said softly. I just want to understand you. Lily wiped a tear quickly, almost embarrassed. I didn't think anyone would ever want that, she said. Ethan gave a soft, reassuring smile. I do. She stared at him for a long moment, her breathing uneven but steadying slowly. That night by the river, she said quietly, I wanted to stay. I wanted to keep talking to you. But when my phone rang, everything I had been trying to outrun came back at once. Ethan didn't ask for details. He knew pushing too hard would shut her down. Instead, he said, you don't have to explain everything today. Just tell me what you want right now. Lily closed her eyes, breathing in deeply as if searching for an answer. When she opened them again, they were clearer. I want to stop being afraid of people who make me feel something, she whispered. And you? You make me feel something good. Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, a quiet confirmation that the connection between them wasn't one-sided. She continued, I don't want to dance to forget anymore. I want to dance because it makes me feel alive. And when I saw you watching just now, I didn't feel judged. I felt seen. Ethan moved a little closer, his voice soft and steady. I don't know what the future looks like, Lily, but I know I want to be here. If you let me. Lily's lips parted slightly, and she nodded, almost shyly. I want that too, she said. I want someone who stays. Her voice cracked on the last word, revealing years of loneliness she never spoke about. Ethan reached out, not touching her yet, waiting for permission. When she placed her hand gently in his, he felt something shift between them. Something soft but strong. Something fragile but hopeful. They sat that way for a long time, holding hands in the quiet room, the music forgotten, the fear fading slowly. At one point Lily whispered, I thought dancing alone was the only way to feel free. But maybe freedom is letting someone in. Ethan smiled faintly. Then let me in, he said. Lily nodded, and for the first time she didn't pull away. They stood together, and she lifted his hand gently. Want to try something? She asked, a small playful spark appearing in her eyes. Ethan chuckled nervously. I'm not a dancer. You don't have to be, she said. She placed his hand against her waist, guiding him slowly, teaching him how to follow her simplest steps. They moved quietly across the floor. Not gracefully, not perfectly, but honestly. Ethan stumbled once and Lily laughed softly, a real laugh, warm and unguarded. The moment felt light, healing, full of something neither of them expected to find again. When the music ended, they stopped moving, but Ethan didn't let go of her hand. Lily looked up at him, her expression gentle. I think I'm ready, she said. Ready for something new. Ethan brushed a strand of hair from her face, careful and slow. Then maybe, he whispered, we can learn how to start again together. Lily leaned into him, closing the distance not with fear but with trust. And in that quiet room, surrounded by the echoes of her dance, Ethan realized something with absolute certainty. Sometimes healing doesn't begin with words. Sometimes it begins with finding someone who understands the language your heart has been speaking all along. And as Lily rested her head lightly against his shoulder, he knew he had found something rare. Something fragile but real. Something that didn't need perfect timing or perfect answers. Only two people choosing to stay.